If you're talking about like absolute mass, just in pure mass, you're talking just bodybuilding, right? Because for most other sports, there's going to be a performance component. But then in bodybuilding, there's a huge aesthetic and prep component, right? Where actually you probably don't care whether you know whether you exactly gained a kilo and where it went, because that other stuff is going to make a much bigger difference in terms of how you place in your competition.
So here would be my answer to the normal individual who doesn't have an MRI. Here would be my answer is you track fat via an ultrasound or via a really good caliper system, and you try to push the shit out of the scale.
Yeah.
And
what do you mean?
So you track fat, like you track fat at 7 sites. And if your fat isn't going up and you have everything else consistent, like your macros are consistent, your training volumes are consistent, because a lot of these people are robots, and your scale weight is going up on a weekly average, I think you're making gains. I think that is the best way to do it. And so without having all this tech. And I think ultrasound fat measurements are pretty foolproof. Like we have 2 of them at Pro Research, and they're not pressure dependent. Like you can push the fat. It doesn't change that much. Like it's like the cross-sectional area on an ultrasound is really sketchy to me, because that has a huge pressure component and a huge water edema component too. So like you'd have to either do it the same time after training, or you'd have to make sure that your hydration status was the same. But the fat component of those, the sub-Q fat, now then you run in. I think I've thought of most of the downsides of this. What if you gain visceral adiposity? Then you're fucked. Then I don't know. You've just gained visceral fat and we can't measure it. I'm sorry if you got NAFLD because you're trying to make gains.
But wait, if you
do waist circumference. So
visceral fat, I would probably say you can measure reasonably well on a DEXA.
Damn. So we need a DEXA sub-Q measurements.
But then also waist circumference is a decent proxy. It's not that for visceral fat. You're not going to be able to tell if it's going up by a quarter of an inch, and that could be postural and other stuff. So you'd probably have to gain a lot of visceral fat for waist circumference to really move.
Would be a check at some point, though. If you're up like an inch or 2, then you're probably like, yeah, unless you just ate too much crazy food the night before.
Yeah, but you could definitely do abdominal fat on a DEXA.